Hey Internet, this is Nate, and this is a little bit of a different sort of video than I normally do, but I thought given some reactions to my recent video, as well as just in general, this kind of general feeling about Hogwarts Legacy coming out in light of statements by J.K. Rowling over the last few years around trans rights, I thought it'd be good to give my thoughts on why I will be playing Hogwarts Legacy, how I'm dealing with that kind of conflict of interest, and what I'm going to be doing to hopefully reaffirm my support for trans rights while still trying to enjoy what I'm hoping will be a good gaming experience in a fictional world that's had a profound effect on me in my life. So with that backdrop, I guess the start is I don't think anyone is unaware of the controversy. Again, that I think it started in really 2020. J.K. Rowling making some statements around her beliefs on trans rights versus women's rights, and how she saw that as a conflict, and then that escalating over the last few years to where people have attacked her quite publicly on Twitter. She's attacked back quite aggressively, kind of entrenched herself into what is largely an anti-trans community. And that's, again, caused a lot of people to be concerned, or maybe another way to say it is wanting to, in order to kind of protect trans rights, have wanted to avoid contributing to her financially and convincing others to also do the same thing. So, and I understand that intention, using your money to try to reaffirm what you believe to be right and what you believe to be good. And I think that there's nothing wrong in people choosing to do that individually. My concern, and this is what I've kind of seen out there, is people attacking other people for choosing not to follow in that same, with that same position. So attacking people who are going to play the game, attacking people that still want to enjoy the movies, want to enjoy the books, and equating essentially experiencing the world of Harry Potter with also being against trans rights, or sharing the same beliefs as J.K. Rowling. On that note, I want to talk a little bit about my background. So I grew up, if you're not aware already, I grew up staunchly Mormon. Grew up most of my life in Utah, did a 2-year service mission for the church, and it wasn't really until Lara and I went to Germany and had a myriad of experiences that we left the church. And there were a few things that contributed to how I perceived myself, how I perceived the world, that ultimately allowed me to be open to new thoughts, new ideas, that led us into the conclusion that this kind of very black and white view of the church that I grew up with, where the church was always right and everything else was always wrong, that kind of broke. One of those influences is this book, Ender's Game, written by Orson Scott Card. It is my favorite book. Even more than Harry Potter, I do love Ender's Game. If you haven't read it, I would highly recommend it. I even have the book signed by Orson Scott Card here at the bottom. And he wrote, because I've lent this book out to so many people, Scott wrote in my book and said, to Nate's friends, let him choose your books for you. Kind of a fun little anecdote. Yeah, I love this book. It was extremely influential in me accepting a lot of things about myself. In particular, I always felt bad that I wasn't like as physically capable or as coordinated as my siblings, who were all excellent at sports. I was always kind of amateur at sports, and in general, just kind of being a little bit awkward because I was a lot more like intelligent than I was emotionally intelligent. And so Ender's Game was kind of like my sanctuary, where I could read about somebody who had a very similar experience, incredibly intelligent, not particularly emotionally intelligent, not particularly physically strong or physically coordinated. And that the experience with this book and the follow-up books helped me to kind of come to terms with that about myself. And again, super influential in how I viewed myself and my self-esteem. Orson Scott Card has a lot of beliefs that I had when I was staunchly Mormon, with regards to homosexuals, transsexuals, really anything that differs from the kind of traditional moral Christian, I don't know, yeah, that Christian morality. And so at the time there was no conflict, right? I could read Ender's Game. I knew Orson Scott Card was also Mormon, so I could kind of like, yeah, we share the same beliefs, stuff like that. But that changed over time, where I started to have my beliefs around homosexuals, my beliefs around Christianity at large. All of that changed, and that also affected my interpretation and my feelings around Ender's Game, because again, this book has such a huge influence on my life. But I don't at all now, as an adult, agree with many of the beliefs of the author. And when the movie came out, that was one of those like moments of like, am I going to? And I would say I was still kind of active in the church at that time, but had at least my beliefs about homosexuality had evolved quite a lot. And there was a huge push at the time for Ender's Game, the movie, to be boycotted because of Orson Scott Card's beliefs and because of the royalties he would make off of the film. It's very similar to what was going on right now with J.K. Rowling. And ultimately, my coming to terms with it was, I believe that the book is a really well-made book. I think it is extremely insightful. The way that it kind of treats morality, it treats things as a moral gray in a way that I think a lot of books don't, where the evil is not necessarily the evil and the good is not necessarily the good. And do the ends justify the means is a huge part of these books. And I think it's an important thing for people to consider. At the same time, I don't agree with his beliefs. But I went and saw the movie. And my justification was, and this is kind of the theme that I want to share, is like, yes, authors create a work, artists create a work, and when it's created, it now stands alone. And yes, it's not great that those authors may benefit from, especially if they have beliefs, and especially if they use that money to fund beliefs, like Orson Scott Card. I mean, he funds his royalties, he pays tithing to the church, and continues to fund the church. However, I think that there is enough good in the art itself that rejecting the art because of the artist is a net negative on people, and the net negative on kind of the creative works that are available for people to experience. And I feel the same way about Harry Potter. I think Harry Potter also had a tremendous impact on me. It had an even more tremendous impact on Lara. It's got a lot of kids into reading that never would have been big readers. And I think rejecting J.K. Rowling, okay, that's fine. But rejecting that entire world with her is a net negative. I think there's so much good to be had in this world of Harry Potter. The books themselves have helped a lot of people come to terms with themselves, have helped, again, get people into reading that never would have read. And there's a little bit of, if we too aggressively try to avoid, supporting people who we don't agree with, we can lose a lot of value in the process. And so for me, that conflict has kind of already been resolved. I dealt with it already before. I'm dealing with it in a very similar way. However, I also understand that for many people, they really do not want to support J.K. Rowling extremely strongly because of those beliefs. They also may not have this attachment to Harry Potter like many people do. And I want to, again, reiterate that my support of Hogwarts Legacy, and actually do really want this game to succeed. There are not, despite how well PlayStation's doing right now and Sony's doing right now, there are not a ton of great single-player experiences out there right now on a AAA level with a huge investment. Indie games is another story, but in terms of like AAA, a lot of it is exploitive. It's super aggressively multiplayer. It's very much about milking every last dollar out of people. And to have a game that is going to be a primarily single-player experience that hopefully isn't exploitive, and if it is exploitive, I'll eat my own words and come back and apologize for assuming that the Hogwarts Legacy was not going to be exploitive. But to have those experiences succeed is really important to me, because those are the kind of games that I want to see succeed. I love deep single-player experiences. And so for me, there's not a huge conflict because I have been able to already separate J.K. Rowling from Hogwarts and from Harry Potter. The game, her involvement is exclusively getting royalties. It's been very clear the way that the studio has kind of positioned themselves that she's not acting as a huge consultant. She's not as heavily involved as she was with the movies. It's largely their work set in a universe that she created. And so I wanted to succeed. I wanted to succeed for those reasons, again, to kind of inspire companies to invest more in non-exploitive, positive single-player experiences in gaming. However, I also want to, again, reaffirm my commitment to supporting the trans community or really all those communities that are feeling threatened due to agendas that want to rob them of their rights or treat them as lesser citizens because of the way that they feel about themselves and their gender identity, because of their homosexuality. And so for my streams and for Lara's stream that we're going to do with the launch of Hogwarts Legacy, we will be doing it as a charity stream, supporting the Trevor Project, one of the best organizations in the world with supporting, again, in particular, at-risk youth within those communities, but in general, people within those communities that are suffering. So in the link of this video, and it will be available all the way through the end of next week, or all the way up until I think the 11th. You can go to, whoops, this is not the page. You can go to this page. There was my music. You can go to this page, linked in the description. And Lara and I will match up to $2,000 worth of donations to the Trevor Project. I will be donating $500 regardless of the outcome of the charity stream. And I'm hoping what we can do is, again, experience a world that has a lot of positive effects on many people, but also do it in a way that supports the rights of those who are feeling like their rights are being attacked because of the opinions and very outspoken beliefs of its artist. That's all I wanted to cover today. I understand if some people don't agree with my position. I just wanted to make it clear how I felt about it and a little bit how I was dealing with the conflict, and how I'm hoping that we can turn it into a generally positive thing, experience both the world of Harry Potter, but also experience it in a way that we feel like is supporting those who we feel like needs to be supported. That's it. Hope you guys enjoyed that video, and I will see you guys next time. See you later.